So I do enjoy my throwbacks occasionally, and I've come to realize that despite the fact that I've owned this fragrance for a few years, I've never actually reviewed it. So this one is by Liz Claiborne. It's a 2006 release. It's called Lucky Number 6. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this fragrance, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I begin my fragrance review of Lucky Number 6 by Liz Claiborne, and I tell you all about this fragrance, my experience with it, what the smell is like, comparisons, performance, all that good stuff, I do want to start things off by mentioning that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit that bell icon so you can be notified whenever I do publish new videos, and give this video a thumbs up if you take something of value from today's episode. So like I said, this fragrance came out back in 2006, so I went to high school before that, so it's not one of those quintessential high school fragrances like it might be for some other people. When I was in high school, it was all about Curve by Liz Claiborne, it was about Davidoff's Cool Water, Aspen by Coty, and a lot of other fragrances that came out, you know, a little bit earlier, especially in the late 90s. That was kind of when, you know, there was kind of like that resurgence of these very popular fragrances that are characteristic of my high school days. But this one is called Lucky Number 6. I'm given to understand that there is a version for women as well. This is the men's version, and this is predominantly a spicy plum fragrance with sandalwood in there. There are some people who have compared it to Fahrenheit by Christian Dior, which now we're talking about the late 80s, and so I do kind of get a little bit of a connection there. Not a whole lot. I'm going to break that down in a little bit more detail and also let you know what I think is responsible for that. But let's go ahead and start things off with the presentation. In the opening of this fragrance, you are going to get that spicy characteristic from the fragrance. And as a matter of fact, there's another fragrance that I think is equally spicy, and it's Zur Icon. Now that fragrance also has a bit of like a spicy component in the opening. And as soon as this one opened up, I was like, oh yeah, there's a bit of spice in there, perhaps a little bit of cinnamon or nutmeg. There's something that smells fresh, but at the same time, there's something that smells sweet. Now I know plum is mentioned as an ingredient in the note breakdown, and I do get plum. I don't get the connections that people are making to Plum Japonais by Tom Ford. No, not even close. And there are a lot of other fruity, juicy plum-based fragrances, Andy Warhol Face Edition by Bond Number 9 being one of them. I don't really get that kind of a plum characteristic from it. Although there is something on the sweet side, and there's something also subtly on the fruity side of things as well. So I suppose that's kind of where the plum is coming in. But then there's a smoothness about it as well. And I know sandalwood is listed as an ingredient. Sandalwood can be woodsy, smooth, creamy, and also a little sweet as well. And I am getting the sweetness and I am getting the smoothness, but there's nothing creamy per se. You know, whenever I think of creamy, I think of coconut, fig milk, fig nectar, some of these sort of lactonic ingredients. I don't necessarily get that, but I do get a spiciness, also a touch of freshness as well. Now, interestingly enough, I never personally made the connection to Fahrenheit by Christian Dior until I saw other people online saying that there's a slight similarity. And now that they mention it, I can see it. But it's more abundant and more transparent in the opening. So in the opening, you get that connection to Fahrenheit and you're like, oh yeah, there's a little bit of like that dark leathery appeal. And spices are often used in the synthesis of a leather accord. So when you think of Fahrenheit, I mean, I know there's a lot of violet in there, but I also do think a little bit of leather, to be honest. And the fact that this came after Fahrenheit, it probably did take some influence or inspiration from Dior's Fahrenheit. But this fragrance is much more so on the sweeter side of things. Then that's not to say that there aren't Fahrenheit flankers that are sweet. There's Fahrenheit Absolute, if I'm remembering correctly, Fahrenheit Le Parfum. So some of them did take things kind of on the sweeter side of things. But this one is, you know, it doesn't have that nostalgia factor for me. right? Because I've acquired this only a few years ago. I didn't buy it in 2006 when it first came out. So for me, it's lacking that nostalgia factor that Fahrenheit isn't lacking. I hope that makes sense. But at the end of the day, especially for the price that you can find this one at, this one is a no-brainer. I think this one is worth picking up, especially if you're looking for a healthy change of pace in your olfactive arsenal. But I don't think this is a must-have in your collection. If you're buying it for nostalgic reasons, as many people would buy Davidoff's Cool Water or Bogart Pour Homme, or maybe some of these other old school classic fragrances, then I would say yes, by all means, pick it up. You know, I think you'll get good use out of it, especially if you want that rekindling of memories and whatnot. But if you're buying it because you're looking for the hottest new thing, this isn't it, right? But I do think it's a very well put together fragrance, not too complex. Even, you know, with the ingredients that are in here, it's just kind of spicy and sweet, and there isn't much of an in-between for me, right? I know it says green notes and neroli, and there's other things listed in the note breakdown. I don't get anything overly fresh from this. There's kind of like a clean vibe about it as it dries down while retaining a bit of that sweetness. And so I do enjoy the smell. I just don't think it's a must-have. And I think it's a decent release, especially if you want to take a trip down memory lane. I think you would have a very strong reason for buying this one. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, I mean, given all the parameters that we just discussed, I think it's fairly unique. I do see there being a very slight resemblance to Fahrenheit by Christian Dior, but it does kind of go in its own direction as well. And so it has that slightly sweet plum quality about it. It's spicy. It's a little fresh in the opening, very short-lived. But I do think it's a pleasant fragrance. And even given the spices, right, there's no cardamom that I can perceive. There's no star anise. There's no spice in here that I think would be controversial or challenging for people, right? There's no cumin, definitely not. So it has a little bit of that cinnamon, that sweet, dulcet spice that I think makes this a very accessible fragrance. Longevity on this one for me is like 4 hours. I hate to say it. I know it's been around for a while. I'm sure the vintage formulation was probably a bit more resolute. This one is quite ephemeral. Doesn't last a very long time, but 4 hours, you know, for the price that you're paying for it, it's incredibly discounted online. I'll leave links down below if I find anything. But yeah, this one, 4 hours longevity. Projection is great for the first half hour of application. Right around that 3 hour mark, it does sit very close to the skin, becomes rather quiet. Even if you overdo it, I really don't think you can overdose on this one. In terms of the versatility, I think this one is fairly versatile. I think you can wear this one in the colder weather because of the ingredients. I think you can wear it in the hotter weather because it's not overly strong. I know this one is marketed for men. I think it's pretty much unisex, although the spices might kick it a little bit more into masculine territory. So I can see that. I can see somebody who's younger enjoying this one because of the sweetness, somebody older enjoying it because of the spiciness. And I think this one just kind of gives off like a casual vibe. I think even Fahrenheit is a little bit more formal than this fragrance. So I do find this to be more on the casual side of things, especially because of the plum. And in terms of the presentation, I think it's a pretty cool presentation. The string, the little stopper on top, and it has kind of like a retro aesthetic to it. My final verdict on this fragrance is if you're looking for something really, really inexpensive, and especially if you are of the faction of people out there that enjoyed this, you know, a couple of decades ago, I think you'll, you know, enjoy taking a trip down memory lane with this one. Lucky number 6. Thank you so much for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new about this fragrance if you've never tried it before, or if you did, hopefully it you know, stirred up a bit of nostalgia. Thank you for watching. Please support the channel by subscribing to it if you enjoyed the video. Hit the bell, click the thumbs up. Love you all. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.